Do you feel different? Do you have to hide your true self from others? Are you frankly a bit of a weirdo? Then let's be honest, normal school isn't for you. You deserve better. You deserve MatPat's Guide to Young Adult Schools for Mutants, Monsters, and Magic Users. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the YouTube show guaranteed to get you a perfect score on the SATs. Actual number of the perfect score may vary. At this point in the year, summer is long over and students across the world have returned to school to reluctantly learn math, history, and transfiguration. Oh, was that last one not offered to you? Well, maybe you're just at the wrong school. As we've learned from the last 10 years of young adult movies and fiction, magical schools are everywhere. There are schools for vampires, schools for mutants, schools for magicians, even schools for magicians who want to get a little action on the side.
Welcome back.
Whoa there, kids. Let's lower those wands a bit, shall we? But with so many options out there, how can I find the best school for my needs? Well, fear not, because that's the question I plan on answering today. Which magical school is objectively the best? I'm ranking 3 of the most prestigious fictional schools for gifted students of our time. Hogwarts from Harry Potter, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters from the X-Men series, and the new kid on the block, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Simply because it's different, and because the movie has just come out whenever you watch this video, and because it's actually a pretty interesting series. But how do we go about ranking these schools? Well, in real life, there are multiple lists, like the US News and World Report, which serve as ranking systems to compare schools based on criteria like average class size, job placement rates, classes offered, things like that. It's like the one type of listicle that WatchMojo hasn't milked dry at this point. Let's not give them any ideas. Anyway, in preparing for today's episode, I settled on the formula used by one of the most well-respected rating systems, the Princeton Review, which rates each school according to 8 different categories. So how do some of the world's best magical schools stack up? We're about to find out. Oh, and in case it isn't obvious, your choice of school will involve a couple of spoilers for these movies, so be warned. Then again, your education is too important, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go. Category 1, academics. The first thing you think about when it comes to a school is how good are their classes and how diverse is their curriculum. Well, academic courses at Hogwarts are aimed at teaching students about the wizarding world. And while they do a good job of it, students only learn about the wizarding world. From what we can tell in the books and movies, there's only one class, Muggle Studies, that's related to the outside world at all. And because of this, graduates from Hogwarts can care for a flobberworm, but can't, do things like read. Forget calculating a tip at a restaurant because they've literally never taken a math class. Instead, the closest Hogwarts students get is arithmancy, which is predicting the future through numbers. It's basically numerology. Illuminati confirmed. And that's not to mention everything else that they're clueless about.
You must know all about muggles. What exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
Miss Peregrine's school, by contrast, is much more concerned with teaching students to defend themselves or stay hidden. They do teach regular subjects, which is why this qualifies as a school, but the problem is that the school is stuck in a time loop back in 1940. This means all the students are missing almost 75 years of history, technology, Game of Thrones episodes, everything. In fact, Miss Peregrine deliberately hides information from her students to ensure that they never leave. Don't get me wrong, I love you, Miss P, but it might be time to upgrade to some newfangled learning tools like, say, 8-track tapes, cassette decks, laser discs. By the way, do schools still use laser discs? It was always so random when a teacher would pull one of those things out. What's a laser disc, you ask? Well, basically, they're record-sized compact discs. What's a record? What's a compact disc? Man, I feel ancient. So that leaves us with Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, which is surprisingly designed to be just like an ordinary private school. As a student there, you'll be learning normal history, science, and English in between phys ed classes featuring laser eye target practice. In fact, according to the X-Men Survival Guide to the Mansion, every student must, in part, be pre-med. No joke. Mixing algebra with magnetic satellite moving, the curriculum here is clearly the most balanced. First point to House Xavier. Category 2, financial aid. A key consideration in any college decision is how much funding the school provides for its students to lessen the crippling debt it'll put them in for the next 10 years of their lives. Lucky for our gifted students, all 3 of our schools are set up like safe houses on top of just being places of higher education. As a result, there's no tuition, no bursar bills, and no student loans hanging over your head upon graduation. Come to think about it, that's probably the single most fictional thing about these fictional schools. You gotta pay those student loans, bub. Probably shouldn't have taken that extra course in ethics, eh? But with Hogwarts, you've really gotta read your fine print, because before you can say Petrificus Totalis, you're getting hit with all sorts of hidden fees. You've gotta have your robes, your cauldron, your wand, all those books, including the one that literally bites you. Hogwarts even has a pet on the back-to-school shopping list. And we know that this stuff is expensive.
I haven't any money.
At Universal Studios, a wand will run you $50. The thing isn't even a magic wand, it's like a plastic remote control. It has less functionality than a Wiimote. Ooh, look, I turned on the lantern. Thanks for the magical experience, Universal. Doesn't even have a phoenix feather in there. I mean, Harry is lucky enough to have 2 dead parents who left him with a cavern full of gold to pay his bills, but a middle-income family like the Weasleys need to use all hand-me-down robes, books, and even rats. As a result, the points for this round go to both Miss Peregrine's and Xavier's school. Categories 3 and 4, faculty. Princeton Review has 2 categories here. 1, how qualified, and 2, how accessible the teachers are. Miss Peregrine's has the greatest disadvantage here since it only has 1 faculty member. And on the experience side, Miss Peregrine may be well-versed in peculiardom. Yes, for those of you who haven't read the books or seen the movie yet, that is what they call their special ability. It's a good series of books, but it is as ridiculous as it sounds. But let's be honest, her qualifications as an actual teacher are somewhat loose. She grew up in the 1920s and deliberately ignores any progress made in science, tech, art, and history. I suppose you could say that she's a bit of a bird brain, because she's an inbreed, which have the ability to turn into birds. Whatever, it's a complicated fictional world, okay? On the other hand, at least she has a lot of office hours and makes breakfast for the whole class. It's not enough to get her the points, though. By contrast, the Hogwarts faculty are all actual professors and fully specialized in their subject. A lot of them have real-world experience, like Mad-Eye Moody, or are known for their academic rigor, like Snape. Even their office hours are pretty good. I mean, in most movies, you can barely avoid these teachers even if you're literally wandering the halls at 3 a.m. under an invisibility cloak. For crying out loud, Dumbledore kept coming back to give Harry advice even after he was dead. And so then what about Xavier's? Well, unfortunately, he just seems to scrape up whatever mutants are available and throw them into a random subject. Sure, Professor Charles Xavier has a doctorate from Oxford, but do you really think Cyclops is qualified to teach geometry? He doesn't even have depth perception. And what about accessibility? Well, unfortunately, the X-Men are only teaching in between major world crises, which basically happen all the time, at which point they take up their real jobs as, you know, the X-Men. Think you're gonna be scoring well on the ACT when your teacher's been gone for the last 3 weeks trying to wrangle Magneto back into his little plastic box? I don't think so. Thus, it's Hogwarts far and away that has the best faculty both in terms of quality and accessibility. 2 points for House Hogwarts. Categories 5 and 6, campus life, and safety. What good is the quality of the education and the training of the faculty if students are living under constant fear of death? A school, first and foremost, needs to be safe, which, when it comes to these schools, means these categories are just a wash. Sure, Xavier's looks like this beautiful manor, but hello, it's built over the X-Men headquarters. It's like building Harvard on top of a nuclear testing site. In the span of a few decades, we literally see the school overtaken by the military, ransacked, and completely obliterated. In the comics, the place gets destroyed like every 10 issues. And while Hogwarts may seem like the better option with its secluded campus and great extracurricular activities like Quidditch, Hogsmeade, and dances, it also has a tree in the front yard that can eat cars, a basilisk in the plumbing, a troll in the girls' bathroom, as well as deadly spiders and angry centaurs just off of school grounds. And that's not including the time Death Eaters snuck their way through security, murdered the principal, and destroyed the castle in the middle of what amounted to a wizarding race war. Miss Peregrine seems like it should have the easy win here, right? They literally repeat the same sunny day over and over. What could possibly go wrong? Well, that sunny day that they repeat over and over again happens to be the one where the school found itself in a direct path with a World War II bomb dropped overhead. The only thing saving the students every 24 hours is that it exists in a time loop that resets when the bomb is inches from landing. That said, if the loop isn't reset, that bomb will literally demolish the school and all of its inhabitants. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, if any of the students decide to leave the loop, everyone will age forward by the 80 years they've missed and immediately die. So yeah, No winners in these categories. Jeez, it's a miracle anyone seems to even graduate. Category 7, job prospects. What's the point of a school if not to get a job after graduation? I mean, a school that can get even their English majors lucrative work is definitely doing something right. Well, even though Xavier students learn normal school subjects, most of them are encouraged by Charles himself to
rejoin the world or stay on to teach others.
And yet, most students end up just doing that second part, becoming part-time teachers and full-time X-Men, neither of which are particularly stable jobs considering the health risks we covered back in categories 5 and 6. As for Miss Peregrine's, because of that pesky time loop, students never age. And considering that they're all under 18, those baby faces are gonna hurt them and their long-term job prospects. But honestly, it's not like any of that even matters. When you're stuck reliving the same day over and over again, it's not like you're ever gonna make it to payday in the first place. And again, there's that whole leave the time loop and you die thing, so let's just say that there are a few hurdles to long-term job security on that one. Meanwhile, most students at Hogwarts graduate and settle into magical jobs like ministry officials, dragon hunters, Quidditch players, which easily puts Hogwarts at the top of this category. Hogwarts gains a point in job prospects, which means that our score going into the final round is Hogwarts 3, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters 2, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children at 1 point. And since there's only one category left, does that mean that this is basically over? That there's no way the other schools can take down Hogwarts? Well, don't be too sure. Let's look at that last criteria. Category 8, selectivity of admissions. Now, admittedly, at first glance, this doesn't seem like much of a game changer. Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters never rejects any mutant. They'll even admit mutants whose powers negate the powers of other mutants, or mutants who have formerly destroyed the school, or mutants that seduce the students. Seriously, they seem to accept everyone. Hogwarts 2 is open to wizards from all walks of life, even if their parents are Voldemort supporters. I'm looking at you, Draco. And Miss Peregrine's Home is open to anyone who exhibits peculiar symptoms, or is pale enough to star in a Tim Burton film. But when you really look at the admissions process, two of these schools kinda suck. Institutions that, at their core, are fundamentally discriminatory, ageist, and ableist. They exclude people based on attributes they have no control over, like their genetics and their physical abilities, which would be like Harvard only allowing men, but not just men, only white men who are also blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Not born with a peculiar soul? Well then sorry, but Peregrine's doors are shut to ya. In fact, not only can non-peculiars enter the school's loop, if they somehow manage to enter campus grounds, they would actually lose their mind. That's no exaggeration. They will literally lose their mind. And if you think that's bad, Hogwarts admissions practices are actually illegal. You see, according to the Pottermore official website, Hogwarts admissions is dictated by the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance, and the book has a perfect track record of keeping squibs out of Hogwarts. This is also confirmed by J.K. Rowling on her old official website, that no squib has ever attended Hogwarts. Now, as a refresher, squibs like Argus Filch are non-magic children born to witches and wizards. Basically, they're wizard-born muggles. And being a squib is like the single worst thing that you can be in the wizarding world. In fact, the word squib is basically like a racial slur to them. So then why is it such a big deal if they're kept out of Hogwarts? They're not magical anyway, so the decision to send those children off to muggle schools makes a lot of sense, right? Well, with the exception of race, private schools can discriminate on the basis of things like religion or ability. But that's only if they don't receive federal funding. If a private school receives even $1 of government funding, they're subject to anti-discrimination laws, including things like the Americans with Disabilities Act here in the US, or disability rights in the UK. That's the one that would apply to Hogwarts. And Hogwarts receives funding from the Ministry of Magic. J.K. Rowling even confirmed the funding herself on Twitter. And even though it's barely mentioned in the books and the movies, I can confirm that the Ministry of Magic gets its money, outside of what it receives from private donations from Lucius Malfoy types, from tax-paying wizards and witches, as evidenced by the existence of the hexing tax that you see right here. So what we have in Hogwarts is a school that receives funding from taxpayers that willfully discriminates against wizard-born children, the squibs. And that, quite frankly, is illegal based on the letter of the law. As such, Hogwarts technically should be shut down by the government, or be required to open its doors. And here I thought that you were a guy who would appreciate diversity, Dumbledore. And that leaves only Xavier School, which, believe it or not, allows non-mutants to study there. It took some digging across a lot of fictional yearbooks, but for 10 issues, a non-mutant by the name of Walter Lambert speaks about how he earned his way into Xavier's School off of academic merit alone. A non-mutant in the mutant private school. Why you would want to go there considering your school gets destroyed every few months and half the curriculum doesn't apply to your skill set is beyond me, but hey, you could totally do it. You know, on second thought though, I guess getting taught pre-med by Wolverine would be pretty awesome. The guy is an expert on healing after all. But all in all, when the dust settles, Xavier's School is the #1 gifted student university based on the Princeton Review rankings. Which brings us to the moral of today's episode. While we think these schools would be great to go to in real life, the fact of the matter is that none of them would want the rabble like us. Well, you know what? They can keep their potions. I'll see the rest of you in home ec. Today we're learning about how to clean grout. Now that is a real magic trick. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Alright, so you might not be learning the most practical skills at any of these schools, but if you're eager to get yourself some real-world useful learnings, then head on over to the Wisecrack channel, who are constantly doing fun, insightful analysis of all your favorite movie franchises. In fact, if you're still watching this video, it means that 1, you probably liked it, and 2, you're probably eager for more X-Men goodness, hence me recommending to you their analysis of X-Men First Class, which has some super cool insight into Magneto's transformation throughout the movie into the monster that he always sought to destroy. Man, just saying that made me feel like 10 times smarter. Plus, when it comes to their videos, you cannot deny those sick eyebrows. Love those things. It's like a toupee for the upper eyelid. So anyway, click here to check out the Wisecrack channel and then tell them I sent you so I can rub it in their faces that I sent a bunch of viewers over to them. It's all part of a friendly little rivalry that we have. It's not friendly at all, it's actually bitter. Bitter rivals. Now, if you'll excuse me, next week we kick off Scary October by getting dark and green. See you then.